get started. Thank you for joining us today for the Patient Perspective and Patient Participation webinar. My name is Lindsay Goldberg, and I'm the Executive Director and Patient Liaison at the RYR-1 Foundation. I'll be serving as your moderator for today's session. We are excited to have Lizan Stinissen with us today. Lizan is a PhD candidate under the guidance of Professor Nicol Voerman, a member of our Scientific Advisory Board at the Radboud University Medical Centre in the Netherlands. Additionally, we are honored to have Brittany Simon, a valued member of the RYR-1 Foundation's Board of Advisors, joining us. Brittany will be sharing her perspective and her involvement with both a prior survey and this new survey. With that, I'll pass it over to Lizan to get started.
Hello everybody. We cannot see you, but nice that you all are here. So today we're going to talk about the webinar on RYR-1-Related Diseases, the patient perspective and patient participation. I'm currently doing my PhD at the Radboud University in the Netherlands. And my PhD also focuses on patient perspective, patient participation. I'm currently in the final year, and I've done research about how patients with neuromuscular disorders live with their disease, but also the experiences with the first clinical trials in neuromuscular disorders. I've done research in patients with RYR-1-related diseases, but also patients with other types of congenital myopathies, and also patients with FSHD. So that's quickly about me, but now we're going to start the webinar. So this is an overview of what we're going to talk about. The webinar will consist of 4 parts. So first, I will talk about trials in neuromuscular diseases, about research that I've done on the experiences of participants. Next, Nicol and Brittany will talk about patient involvement in research. Next, I will talk about a current survey study that we've recently started. And in the end, there's extra room for questions and discussion. And who are we? Lindsay already introduced us, but this is just to show you again. So Nicol is also my supervisor of my PhD, and then some of you might already know Brittany as well. So the first part is on trials in neuromuscular disorders and the experiences of participants. And for this part, I will talk about a study that we performed in 2022 and 2023 that is about the experiences of participants in clinical trials. This is just to give some background. So this study that we did was on patients with central nuclear myopathy, which is a type of congenital myopathy. The study was not specifically focused on people with a RYR-1-related disease, but a minority of these patients can have a mutation, a RYR-1 mutation. And over the last decade, several clinical studies focusing on central nuclear myopathy has been carried out. Some of these studies are clinical, are natural history studies focusing on understanding the disease, but also clinical studies focusing on testing experimental treatments. And the results of these studies have been published in journals and presented at international conferences. So clinicians are also aware of these published results, but there was also the first time that clinical trials were conducted for this rare disease, which also gives us the opportunity to learn from the patients' experiences. Different patient organizations have also learned important lessons from participating and being involved in these first studies, and they also felt the need to share their experiences. And as a scientific board member, Nicol heard about this and wanted to make this available for the entire scientific community. So for patients, but also for clinicians, researchers, sponsors, all parties that are involved to help to improve future clinical trial design and to be able to plan future studies that better fit patients' lives. In preparation of this study, we first did a scoping review on the barriers and facilitators for patients with neuromuscular disorders in participating in a clinical trial. So the challenging and also the helpful factors in participating. And what we did was, with a scoping review, it's a structured and systematic way to find research on a specific topic. So we searched the internet for available studies to see what research has been done so far. And we immediately noticed that there was a limited amount of research available. But this is an overview that we made of the barriers and facilitators in participating in trials. As you can see, a lot of these studies was done also in parents of children that participated. So some of the barriers include possible side effects, worsening of the disease states, but also travel time, having to stay overnight. And some of the facilitators include finding a cure, but also better understanding the disease. And what we did, we used these results to design the protocol of our own study on this topic. So what we wanted to do, we wanted to perform our own study on this topic with the aim to investigate the burden of and the lessons learned from the first natural history studies and trials from a patient perspective by a qualitative approach. And with a qualitative approach, I mean that we want to study people's experiences, opinions, and feelings on this topic. So the study was carried out in 2022 and 2023. And what we did was we held 4 focus groups. And focus groups are small group interviews in which people are asked about their experiences on a certain topic. And the focus groups were led by a moderator who guided this conversation. And we had a total of 4 focus groups with 37 participants in total. And these were either study participants with central nuclear myopathy, parents or caregivers of study participants, and also representative and active members from patient organizations. And we collaborated in the study with 3 different types of patient organizations in different countries. So we worked together with members of MTM CNM Family Connection in the United States, the Myotubular Trust, which is in the United Kingdom, and Susanne Stark, which is located in Germany, and for patients in Germany, the Netherlands, and Austria. What we did, 2 of these focus groups were held at a family conference of Susanne Stark in Germany, and 2 of these focus groups were held online via Teams. And what was also important to notice, to be aware of, is that it is also an example in which patients were involved as researchers in this study. Nicol will later on talk more about this topic. But what I mean with this is that the initial idea, recruiting participants, analyzing the results, writing and publishing it was all done in collaboration with patients and members of these patients' organizations. And as an example, the picture you see on the bottom right, that is a picture that was also made by one of the patients. And he made it to put on the website for people to be informed about the study and get people to participate in the study. Yeah, but Nicol will talk more about this in the next part. So we held focus groups, and in these focus groups, we discussed 4 themes. So we asked the participants about their expectations and about the trial, about their trial participation experience in general, about the communication during the trial, after the trial, before, and also about recommendations that they would have for the future. So next, we did the data analysis. So I will quickly show how we did that. It was recorded via Teams, and then we made a transcription. So we wrote down everything that was being said, and we coded this. And with coding, I mean that we labeled parts of the text with code. It can be a short phrase or word that describe what is being discussed. And this helps us to organize everything that is being said, all the data, and to identify the most important topics. And eventually we made this into a report that is now published. The most important results of this study was that participants were very realistic in their expectations. So they hoped for small improvements of their function and in quality of life. Participating in a study also had a great impact on many aspects of daily life for participants themselves, but also for other family members. So this can include school or work, having to take days off, for example. The participants also highlighted the importance to keep in mind that a trial is not a treatment, so that there can be risks and it might not always have the expected effect. And it's really important to have clear communication. So also during a trial, but also if there are any side effects. And these are some of the quotes on slides that was, these are literal quotes that was being said during some of these focus groups. So based on these results, we made some recommendations for future clinical studies. So first, it's important that study sites fit appointments that fit the patient's care schedule as closely as possible. Another recommendation was that sponsors should offer a service for emotional support during, but just as important, also after a trial has finished or ended. The importance of being aware of impact a trial can have on someone's daily life and possible financial costs that it can have. And patient organizations play a very important part in expectations management and also in communicating the message that a trial is not treatment. And in summary, so main conclusions that we also had from this study was that it really showed the importance of involving patients in the design, development, and evaluation of clinical studies and trials. So clinical study evaluation should not only include physical or medical outcomes, but it's also important to include learnings from clinical study experiences of patients and family members. And it can all be used to improve future studies. And what's also important that we learned from this study was that it's a nice example of a co-creation of clinical research that is done by academic research, but also with patient organizations worldwide. And a final picture that I want to show you is another thing that was made very clear from this study is the picture shows how all different parties in a clinical trial are connected. And I think the most important thing most important thing to take away is that especially in rare diseases, patients often, or participants often know each other or can easily contact each other also through social media. And I think this is very important for a sponsor like a pharmaceutical company or a trial site to be aware of. And that is what I wanted to tell about on the first part about this study. Are there any questions so far? No questions, Lena? Or
well, what I would like to add, Lindsay, is that Lizan explains that it's important to realize that patients with rare diseases know each other, and the reason that it's important for sponsors and contract research organizations and trial sites to know about it is that in one of these trials, it was told to participants, you cannot talk to others about your participation, because they didn't want the results to be influenced by the fact that others knew about participation. But you cannot tell that to people who all know each other, although they live in different countries or different states for the United States. And that's something where clinical research organizations, so CRO or sponsors, these are the pharmaceutical companies, were not at all aware of. So it shows that performing a trial in a rare disease is definitely something different than performing a trial on a common condition such as diabetes or hypertension.
I just want to mention real quick, if people have questions, please enter it in the chat box. We're monitoring it.
Okay.
And there will be more moments to ask questions also in the end. But for the next part, Nicol will take over and talk about patient participation. Yeah, Nicol.
Yes, you will have to be my assistant because I cannot click to the next slide. So you can start and go with the next slide. In general, when we think about the role patients take in clinical research, you can think about the different steps in research. In many different research processes, you start with a clinical problem where we don't know the answer to. This can lead to a research question. And then if there are sources available, research is available, you can design a study aiming to answer the research question. Then the study will be performed, you will get results, and you get to a conclusion. Next slide. And in general, patients can participate in a study as a subject, so an individual which is being studied. It's a passive role, or at first sight, it seems to be a passive role. And that is what I think all people will think of when they talk about patient participation. There's been one trial in RYR-1-related diseases at the NIH. So maybe some of you have been a trial participant, or maybe your partner or anyone else in your family. But there are many different ways in which patients can contribute to scientific research. Can you go to the next slide? In fact, patients can contribute to any of these steps or stages of clinical research. They can raise a topic which they find important. And Lizan was telling you about the results of the review she has performed and the qualitative study with the focus groups. And in fact, that issue was raised when I was talking to the members of the scientific board of Zusammen Stark, the German patient organization. They told me about their experience and said it would be so important to get a better view on these experiences in trials. And that's what led to a research question. And together we designed the study. The study was performed by me and others. We analyzed the results, but then when we had the results, we discussed them again with members of the two patient organizations, of actually the three patient organizations. And we came to a conclusion which was published and then disseminated so that the information was spread to different media by patients. And I think, of course, the role of patients will not be the same in each stage, but they can contribute to any of these stages of clinical research. The next slide. When Lizan and I were searching for a nice example, we found a little video about patient involvement in research. And in fact, there are different terms being used. So you have patient involvement, patient engagement, and patient participation, and it can be confusing. This webinar is called patient participation. That's the overall term for roles patients take in clinical research, but you can divide it in different roles. Involvement refers to the contribution patient can have to any steps in the execution of clinical research. Engagement is more about raising awareness and spreading the results of the clinical research. And patient participation itself mainly refers to being a study subject. And in the next slide, we have a link to the small video, which lasts approximately 1.5 minutes, explaining this. But we don't hear the voice now, Lizan.
You don't hear it?
No.
Oh, let's
Do you
see.
have, are you using your ears?
No, I don't use anything. You don't hear anything? I can maybe try it on YouTube itself.
We practice everything.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Let me.
And if not, we will include the link in the email, which Lindsay will be able to disseminate with a link to the recording afterwards. So that's not really an issue.
Do you now see the YouTube page, Nicol?
Yes.
Or do you see the...
Yes.
Maybe I can try it this way. Do you hear anything? Oh. Then I don't think it's working.
It's okay. Just leave it for now and we go back to the PowerPoint. But as I said, Lindsay will definitely be so friendly to distribute the link. And it's not, if you search this title, Patient and Public Involvement in Research in YouTube, you will also find it yourself.
I'm
Okay.
just getting notification that it shows that the microphone is crossed out at the top of the screen.
Oh, very good. That's also patient involvement in presenting. Thank you.
My microphone is out.
We can hear you talk, so I'm not really sure what is going on.
Yeah. I have no idea what else I can do to make the video work.
You start it once more. Maybe we see something, Lizan. Just one other try. Is there a microphone icon somewhere which is blocked? No, we don't see it.
Yeah.
Well, I think this is the secret which will kept until the after the presentation. You will be able to look at it afterwards. Thanks for trying, and we will continue with the next. It's a short video explaining the things I just shortly mentioned. We go to the next slide.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. And that's actually what we also did within the RYR-1 community. I would just summarize it shortly and then ask Brittany to share how she experienced that. Preceding the 2022 conference, Brittany and others started a survey to assess the burden of disease and the patient and caregiver perspective of individuals with a RYR-1-related disease. I was only involved in the beginning when they started talking about this, and then they did this together with a group of patients, and they had an online survey in which more than 200 people participated, and then they analyzed the results and presented that at the scientific conference in 2022. This scientific conference led to a workshop report, which is quite common in scientific communities. And there was one paragraph on the results of this survey. But I was at the conference, I knew how they had prepared it. I saw all the results and I thought, well, there's so much more information in there, which is not available to a wider audience now, that I reached out to Brittany and the others and said, well, we would be very happy to help you make a full report of the very interesting study you have performed. So what we then did is that they handed over the file with data, the presentation they had given, but also the testimonials. And we made a combined study with one giving the percentages of certain symptoms. And on the other hand, we analyzed the testimonials, so the patient stories which were presented at the conference in a qualitative manner. And then we discussed the results together with Brittany and others and made a scientific publication, which you see here, in which Brittany and Andrew and Jennifer, as members of the patient organization, as well as Mike himself, were co-authors on this publication. And I think it is a quite, well, you could call it a simple study or a straightforward study compared to some of the preclinical work which takes place. But if you think from a perspective where a pharmaceutical company might be interested in developing a drug for RYR-1-related diseases, it's very important for them to know, well, what actually is the burden of disease in this disorder. And there, this paper really gives a good answer to. And I think it is, again, a very nice example in which patient researchers collaborated with academic researchers, which resulted in a very interesting publication which contains very valuable information. And Brandy, if you're able to, it would be lovely if you could share a few sentences about how this was for you.
Hi, yes. It was more than I ever imagined that it would be. I thought when I was, coming on to this project that we were just going to literally share our testimonials to scientists and experts. But like you said, we couldn't stop there. We said, how can we make this a bigger project that would impact more people? Because we were limited to just a handful of individuals on this team that we got together to present to the scientists and experts. But there we have a whole community. There's strength in numbers. So what we did was we conducted a survey, like you said, that touched on different demographics, lifestyles, questions on abilities such as, a range of motion, how far can you walk, things like that, to get a more diverse picture to present to not only just those at the workshop, but even beyond that to other healthcare providers worldwide. So it was a great experience working with these individuals, and we got an amazing turnout once we drafted the survey. It took a few weeks, months to do. Once we got that survey drafted, and we then spread it onto social media. There are various RYR-1 support groups that we posted it on. And that an amazing turnout, over 220 responses. And so what that told me is that people want to be heard. People want to be a part of this research that's going on, that's really making a difference in the progress of RYR-1 related diseases. So when we did present those findings to you and as well as some other researchers, it was, I had no idea that it was going to end up being a part of a medical journal. And that was exciting. And then here we are again, writing another one. And I'm just excited to see where that goes from here.
Nicole, your microphone is turned off.
Thank you, Brandy, for sharing that. Anything else you wanted to share with the audience today?
Well, I do want to stress that advocacy, so patient advocacy is so important, because if we don't take control in our own healthcare and share our experiences and perspectives with the scientists who are actively conducting the research to improve on it, we're not going to get optimal benefits out of it. And nobody's a better expert in your own healthcare than you are. So I know sometimes, surveys could be a bit burdensome, or, you may have to take that leap of faith and and participate in those clinical trials. But in the end, you're going to benefit from it too, even if it's not immediate. You're going to benefit. Someone that you know or care about is going to benefit. And we have a long way to go of getting RYR-1-related myopathies on that map in healthcare, because there are a lot of specialists who have never heard of it. I'm still getting doctors that are literally Googling RYR-1-related myopathies right in front of me in my doctor offices. And, I'd love to see it as common as Googling high blood pressure. Everybody knows about high blood pressure. So I would love for us to get to that point of it being more common. We're seeing less individuals being diagnosed with the wrong diagnosis. Like I was diagnosed with with mitochondrial disorder just because RYR1 wasn't heard of back in '93. And now we're seeing that a lot of children are being diagnosed with it a lot earlier. And that's because people are stepping up and speaking and doing their part. And so I just want to encourage everybody to not be afraid to speak to these scientists and experts, especially Dr. Nicol is one of the most grounded, humble scientists that I know. Very approachable. I love talking to her. So if you see her at the conference, don't be afraid to just, introduce yourself. Maybe she can, we're all learning from each other. And that's what Strength in Numbers is all about.
Well, thank you for your kind words, Brandney. And it's not only because I'm a friendly person, it's really because I believe that the science is better if you as a patient bring in your own perspective. And that's why we're contributing to this webinar.
Absolutely.
Lizan, can you go to the next slide? Because we want to, we have started in collaboration with Brandney and others, a new survey where Lizan will talk about.
Yeah, I will now talk about a study that we recently started, which is a RYR-1-related disease patient survey.
Lindsay.
Oh, yeah.
Lindsay,
We have
raised,
one.
maybe because
We have
yeah,
one
questions.
question. We have one
Yeah.
question, and I also want to apologize that the chat box is disabled. So if you have a question, please put it in the Q&A box. So the question that we have is, do you open trials every so often, and can anyone participate even if they are located in another country?
Thank you for that question. It's not that, well, we have clinical trials, but for different inherited myopathies. And currently there's not a trial for RYR-1-related diseases ongoing. But if you look at the developments in the preclinical field for many different inherited myopathies, this will most likely change in the future. And there has been one small phase 2 clinical trial for RYR-1-related diseases at the NIH. And we're not sure yet if the sponsor, so the pharmaceutical company, aims to continue it with the phase 3 trial. Phase 3 trial includes more patients. But I really think based on the developments in the field for other inherited myopathies and in the field of RYR-1-related diseases sponsored by the RYR-1 Foundation, that it is a matter of time until there will be clinical trials for RYR-1-related diseases. And in my country, we generally include only Dutch-speaking people who can travel back and forth to our hospital by themselves with the taxi or the train or by car. Because in the clinical trial, people have to come often, and the clinical trial often lasts long for a year or 1.5 years. And then it's actually not feasible to include people who live in other countries. And a nice example is actually that, or an extra argument for that is actually that the trial Lizan talked about, the central nuclear myopathy trial, started in 2020 at the onset of the corona pandemic. And then you can imagine that traveling outside the country was not even possible anymore. And that time we were very happy that we only had Dutch participants who could be followed up in creative manners. But then it's definitely not possible to have international participants. And I know at the United States, I think in general trials will be national at a number of sites, and then it's dependent on how many study visits are required, which will determine if someone can participate who lives more remote from that trial site. I hope that answers the question. And I don't see
Continue or
any other questions now. So Lizan, you can continue.
Yes. So we recently started this RYR-1-Related Disease International Patient Survey. And I will talk more about this. See, yeah. So first, some background information. So like Nicole already explained, that there are currently no curative treatments for RYR-1-related diseases. Several preclinical studies are ongoing. We also have a natural history study at Radboud University, at the hospital where we work, that is now ongoing by a colleague. And like Nicole said, there has been one clinical study that might be continued, or there might be a follow-up of it, that is by ARMGO, now called RYR-1, on the bottom right. But this still calls for optimal trial readiness of trial sites when there will be more trials. And when I say trial readiness, I mean being well prepared to start a clinical trial. And this includes the identification of patients that can be recruited, a selection of the most appropriate outcome measures, but also the availability of study sites with well-trained personnel. And the patient community can also contribute to this by identifying the patient preferences and expectations for future trials. And with this study, we hope to provide clinical researchers, pharmaceutical companies, and the patient community as well with areas of research that is meaningful to patients. And we also expect that it will provide more insight into symptoms that are the most important to patients and gaps in the therapies that are currently available for patients with RYR-1-related diseases. So the aim of the study is to investigate what people with RYR-1-related diseases and their caregivers expect from future clinical trials, and what would encourage them to participate. What we did is we have made a questionnaire, as a survey, and this was an already existing survey of FSHD Europe, which is another patient organization for patients with the disease FSHD. And we have their permission to use their survey, and then we have discussed this survey, adjusted it, revised it with our own research team that I will show you in the end, but also with board members of RYR-1. And the survey has also been translated in different languages, which has also been done with the help of patients, and also then adjusted, like I already said. The survey collects limited demographic information, but what we collect is all treated anonymous. And we want to publish the results in a medical scientific journal. So just like the article on the other study that Nicole showed. And the survey, it has different topics. So it's ask questions about trial experiences, encouraging and discouraging factors, expectations, but also information about your current condition, symptoms that cause you concerns for future. So it asks different questions about trial participation, expectations, but also current management of the disease. And for this study as well, we closely collaborate with other people, with the other members of the RYR-1 Foundation, but also people from other countries that I will show you in the end, and also Brandy. And this is another example, like Nicole already explained, of how different people are involved throughout the different steps of a study. Brandy, do you have anything else that you would like to add on this study as well? Or you already explained what it meant for you for the last study.
Yeah, just same as I feel for the last study, just honored to be a part of this one too.
It's great to hear. I will continue. Yeah, so this survey is available for all patients with RYR-1-related disease. And for participants up to 16 years, parents should complete the survey, or they can complete it together. The survey is available in 6 languages, so English, Spanish, Portuguese, French, German, so misspelled, and Dutch. The duration of the survey is approximately 45 minutes, so it's quite a long survey, but it is possible to pause in between. So you can start the survey and maybe finish it up at a later time or day, so it will save your answers. And the survey is available now, and it will be available until the 20th of April. And if you're interested, you can send me an email. I think that slides will be available. So you can send me an email with also your preferred language, and then a link to the survey will be sent to you. Can sometimes end up in the spam folder. But what you can also do is, I have a link on the slide, so the link below. And you can also click that link, and then you will get to a form, and then you can leave out your email address and your preferred language there, and then you will also receive the survey. So we really hope that as many people will help us fill it out, so that we get a lot of answers, and we can analyze that and publish it. So if you have RYR-1-related disease or know someone who would be willing to fill it out, then please either send me an email or click on the link and fill it out.
Lizan, would it be possible for you to share these slides so we can send them out, and then they can easily click on the links?
Yeah, I will share them immediately after this.
Perfect. Thank you.
So for now, what can you do? So you can, for the current survey study, you could either participate in it by emailing me or clicking the link that I will share the slides on. Or if you know anyone else who would like to participate, then you can maybe share it with them or encourage others to participate. And finally, think about maybe ideas about fundraising for the RYR-1 Foundation. So maybe by organizing fundraising activities or raising awareness, make it a topic of discussion. I think those are the most important things. And Nicole will now also talk about what you can do for involvement in future research. Nicole?
Yes, Lizan and I, and also Brandy, hope that we have encouraged you to become a little bit of a researcher yourself and come up with research questions. So I'm sure in daily life or in visiting to a hospital and other aspects of your life, you will encounter situations in which you don't know the solution or which raises questions for yourself, and discuss that with Lindsay. Lindsay will bring it back to me because I'm a member of the Scientific Advisory Board. And if a few of you are interested in clinical research, you could even get together and compose a research agenda. That's what some of the patient organizations do. They make a list of topics which they find most important for clinical research. And of course, maybe on top of the list, there is a drug or a medical treatment for RYR-1 to solve it. But that's not something which will be accomplished very rapidly. And there are many preclinical researchers in the lab working on that. But in the meantime, I think there are definitely also other clinical situations which raise your attention and which lead to research questions. And if you want to be involved in a way such as Brantley is doing, reach out to her, and in the next project, we can discuss who would like to contribute to that in any of the steps of clinical research. And another aspect which could be developed by the RYR-1 Foundation, but that's something which I will have to discuss with Lindsay at a later point, is that it's important for patient organizations, once clinical trials start, to have a patient advisory board. That means there's a board of patients who are well aware of the development process of drugs, who are well aware of the burden of disease, not only of themselves, but also of others, and are able to talk to pharmaceutical companies about what the burden of the disease is and what preferences in clinical research are. So you can become an important representative of the RYR-1 Foundation once it's going to talk to pharmaceutical companies. And as Brantley was saying, the research is becoming better, and especially in rare diseases, clinical research can only progress with the support of patients themselves. Okay, that's what I wanted to add, Lizan.
Yeah, and on the final slides on this, I have a picture of everyone that is involved in this study. So like I already said, the survey is in different languages, and therefore we have different kind of people involved from different countries. That also helps us with the translation. And I think everyone here has contributed in their own way throughout these steps, and will continue to contribute to collaborate on this study. So that's what I wanted to show you.
And I think it's nice to see that's also a collaboration between the different patient organizations in this way.
Yeah, of Susanne Stark, the German patient organization as well, yeah. And that was what we wanted to talk about. So the last part is on discussion or any other questions that you might have on one of these topics. Thank you all for listening.
As a reminder, if you have any questions, please put it in the Q&A. I'll give it a moment to see if there's any additional questions.
And I think you can stop sharing, Lizan.
So it doesn't seem that there are any additional questions, but I just wanted to emphasize a few things. As you can see, this new survey on clinical trial readiness for RYR-1-related diseases is crucial for shaping the future of clinical trials. However, we are currently facing a lack of financial support to complete this project. So we are reaching out to the community to see if you guys can help raise necessary funds to finish this work. And as a reminder, any contribution, no matter how small, is greatly appreciated. And as our slogan says, strength in numbers will help support this study. Also, another quick reminder that our next webinar, Insights from Mouse Models, What We've Learned About RYR-1 Myopathy, will be held at 6 p.m. on April 8th. Be sure to register, and we look forward to seeing you there. Thank you once again for joining us today, and a special thanks to Lizan, Nicole, and Brantley for leading today's insightful webinar. And we wish you all a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you again, everyone.